Hi everyone, Aaron Brooker here, agronomist for Michigan and Northern Indiana. I hope you all enjoyed the insight meetings that we recently had over the last 3 weeks, and we had a lot of great data to share and a lot of data to choose from. Unfortunately, we just can't show it all in the time we had at the PFR insight meetings. So I want to share a few of the studies that I think are really relevant or that I got a lot of questions on that we have data from in PFR. And so the first one, this is one that I got a ton of questions on, whether it was after the meeting or just in general, that I frequently get questions about, and we are testing it in PFR, and that's biologicals, and most of these are going to be biological nitrogen products. So we've looked at a few of these products. One of them is Source in corn. Source is going to be a foliar applied spray, and it's going to activate other beneficial microbes in the root zone. Envita is another one that we've tested, and this one actually goes in furrow, and then it enters the plant and helps that plant metabolize atmospheric nitrogen. And then the last one I'm going to talk about is Utrisha N. This one's a little bit newer to PFR, and this one actually enters through the stomata and then gets into those leaf cells, and then it can convert nitrogen from the air into usable forms within the plant. So all of these products are acting a little bit differently, but the goal is to improve nitrogen use or nitrogen uptake by the plant. So what does the data actually show on these? So we'll start here with Source, and we have 3 years of data on Source. And on the left side there, the two bars on the left, we used 190 units of UAN. On the right side, those two bars, we used 165 units of UAN, so we backed that off a little bit to see if Source could help supplement some nitrogen. And then within each of those, we have our control with no Source, and then 0.7 ounces of Source applied within each of those nitrogen rates. What we saw the most profitable was actually 165 units of nitrogen without Source, but they were all pretty close to each other. Source did increase yield in some scenarios at both the 190 units of UAN and the 165 units. So we did see that it has the potential to increase yield, but the ROI just ends up being pretty even due to the cost of the product. But that's kind of what we saw in Source there. When we move to Envita, it's a little bit of a similar story. The profitability was actually highest here when we look at this chart, when we have 165 units of N with that Envita. But again, all of these are fairly close together in this scenario as well. So there really wasn't a ton of advantage to Envita. We do see that it increases yields, but from an ROI standpoint, pretty close there. So something to potentially take a look at there, but again, ROIs are going to look very, very similar. Moving on to Utrisha N. This is actually the first year for this product, and just because of some of the weather conditions, some of our higher nitrogen rates actually didn't pay us the most this year. And in this study, we had 140 units of nitrogen with and without Utrisha N. And that 140 units without Utrisha N actually had our highest ROI. Now, you'll notice that wasn't our highest yielding treatment, but it did give us our highest ROI once we factor in that nitrogen cost and the cost of that product. So moral of the story here with these three products, they seem to be working. They seem to be giving us a little bit of a yield advantage in some of these scenarios, sometimes not all the time. So I think there's something we need to continue to keep an eye on, these nitrogen type of microbial products. I think there's probably a future with them. I think there's just a little more work that needs to be done. So I think there's a lot of promise here, but right now the ROIs are a little bit negative or potentially right around that break-even point. So if you do try these on your farm, I encourage you to leave test strips, try side-by-sides, make sure you've got a way to test these and see how they're working on your farm. I also suspect that soil type and different regions, different temperature, those types of things are all going to play into these. We're working with living organisms in a lot of cases, and so it's definitely, I think, going to make a difference what kind of environment these are placed in. So try it on your farm. Feel free to do that, but just make sure we're having the ability to test them out and compare it to a non-treated so that we know if it's actually working for us or not. But again, overall, I think these are definitely something we need to keep an eye on over the next few years. There's a lot of research going into this type of technology here. So keep an eye on it, and we'll continue to test some things in PFR. Thanks a lot.